speaker is Dr. David Campbell. The title is going to be Digital Hygiene, Privacy, and Health Best Practices. And I will read you his bio. Dr. David Campbell earned his Doctorate of Science in Oriental Medicine at the National University of Natural Medicine in 2018, but he has been passionate about natural health and holistic healing going back over 20 years. David and his wife moved to Coeur d'Alene in 2021 from Portland, Oregon as pandemic refugees. After working at a clinic in Spokane for a year, Dr. Campbell established Wild Oak Wellness in Coeur d'Alene in 2022. David is currently working on a book titled Integral Naturalism, which is about bridging science and spirituality in order to provide a framework for integrating Eastern and Western medical paradigms through areas of research such as quantum biology, near-death experiences, and PSI phenomena. The electromagnetic aspect of health and disease has been a topic that has fascinated Dr. Campbell for decades, and he is excited to share some of the information with you today. And so I want to go ahead and bring up Dr. Campbell. Please give him a warm welcome.
Good morning, everyone. All right. So I'll just start by saying, I'm not a cybersecurity expert. If you need that, find someone who does that, because there are plenty of people who do. I don't set up personal servers or firewalls or anything like that. This is more just like, you probably all have a smartphone in your pocket right now. So maybe we should think about how to use it effectively in a way that's not going to put you at risk, both with your information as well as your body. So we'll get started. Let's see if the clicker works. Pretty good. So your pocket supercomputer is kind of what I like to call it, because phone is maybe not what we've got anymore, right? These things probably have more computing power than all the computers in the world did in the 1970s, right? So what's going on, and what are they doing that we're not noticing, right? So the three main categories that I'm going to cover, and they overlap with one another, especially privacy and security really overlap a lot. But then the one that a lot of people don't think about is EMF radiation. EMF stands for electromagnetic fields. That's what most people who are concerned about it call it. A lot in the literature, sometimes it's called radio frequency or microwave frequency radiation. It's all the same idea, but we'll get into that later. So some of the basic issues with privacy is that you're probably being tracked. But your location, anything you do on your phone is probably being tracked, possibly surveilled. There's some government programs that love to surveil, and they claim, in our country they're not supposed to surveil our own citizens, but the NSA is known to have copied a lot of the internet into their databases. So it's something to think about. Data mining is more thought of as for data brokers. They basically use that supposedly just for advertising, but they're creating profiles. They call it our digital double, right? They want to know everything about you so that they can target you with ads perfectly. Supposedly it's just about advertisement. There's also the idea of AI training. So a lot of artists nowadays are like, wait a minute, I never signed over my art to be trained into an AI system that can now mimic my style. Well, if you're using something like, say, Google Photos, they have unlimited storage for all your photos in the cloud, and they're training their AI on it. Even Apple, I can type in the names of my family members or friends, and my device knows which pictures are of them. I never gave them that information. How did they figure that out? Anyways, and then obviously this hits more into the security, but financial and identity theft, this is just, private information that's gotten into the wrong hands. So some solutions. one of my favorite things to start with is just look at the settings in your phone. There's a lot of settings that the defaults are not for your benefit, right? So just turn off cross-app tracking. Turn off camera and microphone usage to apps you don't want to have access to it, because I can guarantee you they have access to it whether you're using it or not. Your location services, this is one that takes a little more effort. I turn off location services whenever I'm not using my maps. The reason I do that is because I don't want them, whoever, whether it's Google, Apple, whoever, to be tracking me wherever I go. Plus, your GPS antenna basically has the furthest to go. It has to go all the way to space to ping off a satellite to get your location. So that's a big source of radio frequency radiation. And it drains your battery. So every antenna that's on that you don't need is draining your battery, sending signals through your body, and giving information that you may not want given out. So background processes is another thing you can turn off. It will break some features. If you want apps to function when you're not using them, I personally don't need that, so I just turn it off. But some people like certain features. Social media apps permissions, so what they have access to. Do they have access to all your photos? Because they will look at all your photos. Do they have access to your camera, microphone again? Whatever they have access to, they will use. Software updates are great. My previous phone, I noticed the battery started draining super fast and everything was going really slow, and I was like, what's going on with this? My best guess is I had some malware on there. I don't think it was spyware because it was using the battery regardless. And so what malware can do is they'll use your phone to mine Bitcoin or some other cryptocurrency so that they don't have to buy a new computer. They just use your background processes to do it. So software update, and then it went away. So that's one thing about keeping your software updated will remove a lot of those spyware and malware problems, and it will close loopholes that they got in through. No software is perfect. Everything has vulnerabilities. So here's some other solutions. I say quality VPN service. The reason I say that is not all VPNs are created equal. So VPN stands for a virtual private network. It's basically an encrypted channel that goes, it'll collect basically your traffic with any other user and send it to a server where it then goes onto the internet. And the reason for that is, say you're logged into the Wi-Fi here. Well, anyone else who's logged into that Wi-Fi can pretty much capture whatever you're doing. So if you make a purchase and put in your credit card information, if someone wanted to, they could capture that. Now, if you're sending it through a VPN, it's encrypted, so they shouldn't be able to see it. There's other reasons you might want to do that. Like you can actually have your traffic go through a foreign country if they have different, say, a lot of people use the idea of like Netflix has different shows available in different countries, and you might want to watch a show that's only available in Germany or something.
There are some issues with that.
Yeah.
Some sites don't work, like Google.
Yes, it
might
can.
not work. Some of the sites, like.
Well, I would say don't use Google for search. There's a million reasons why not to use Google for search.
I agree, but there's just be advised that some sites will not work when you're using a VPN.
So Google got rid of its slogan, "Don't be evil." And now they just manipulate everything, including the search results, and they're data mining you if you use their search. So the combination's pretty bad. I'm not the biggest fan. So there's a lot of encrypted communications, but there's not a lot of end-to-end encrypted communications. So that's why I like Signal, signal.org. They're open source. They let people see the code, so it can be verified. They are truly end-to-end encrypted. Something like Telegram or WhatsApp is encrypted, just not end-to-end. So that means the company that owns it holds the encryption keys. Well, great. If that means they can see, so that means they can decrypt whatever you're saying if they want to, or if someone from the government knocks on their door. I just think the Constitution says we have a right to privacy. There are apps that can facilitate that. Now, if you have spyware on your phone, they can see whatever you're doing, so it doesn't matter what app you're using. But assuming you don't click on a lot of links that you don't know where they come from, you shouldn't have spyware on your phone. Password management. Now, I will say the one thing about this is anytime you put this kind of like this is very important information. If you put it in the cloud, which the iCloud Keychain or LastPass, or I'm sure Google has software that does it, it is something that hackers will think of as very beneficial to them to get. Now, I haven't heard of any leaks from these systems, but just know that you're putting your information on someone else's server. There's some vulnerability there. But the benefit of it is you can create unique passwords for every single login. And the reason you want to do that is pretty much every website that you create a password at probably gets hacked at some point. Most of them don't have good enough security to stop every single hacking attempt. So your passwords are leaked regularly. You can use two-factor authentication. There's some reasons that once in a while can be hacked too, but that gives you at least another layer of security. But I would say unique passwords for every website is the best way to go, because then if one is compromised, it doesn't compromise anything else. That's what these things do. They'll automatically remember your passwords for each website.
Which is crazy, because some of these sites make you change your password every so often. It gets to be a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's two-factor authentication is important. So like if you use an email address to authenticate or reset passwords, that email address is the most important thing to have two-factor authentication on, because if you don't, someone can hack that email and reset all your passwords. So your email address is sort of like the kernel that needs to stay protected at maximum. So one thing also for privacy is minimize your antenna usage. So I'm a big fan of Wi-Fi calling. So that's showing you that you can turn on airplane mode, turns off cell, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi, but then you can turn Wi-Fi back on. So you just have one antenna, and you can do pretty much anything you need as long as you're in a Wi-Fi area. It's going to save your battery. It's going to limit the amount of EMFs, but it's also going to limit, your data being shared. So minimize website cookies. It's super annoying now. Most websites will have a cookie pop up every time you go there, because I guess they legally have to, I think, at this point. They always make it a little annoying to reject the cookies. You have to go through and click, but do it, because the cookies are tracking you. That's what they're there for. They're there to track you when you're not even on their website. So it's worth going through that. So my two favorite web browsers are Brave and Firefox. They're the most privacy. Brave is probably the most privacy forward. Firefox is next best. The default settings on Brave are a little stronger than Firefox, but you can go into the settings on either one and amp up the security. Again, if you take it to the maximum, you will break certain features, like remaining logged in when you exit and come back. It won't be logged in anymore, but that's actually a good thing in some ways. You can make it so that you will stay logged in. It's just that, that's not maximum security. Let's see.
Brave also has a VPN in it.
Right, and Brave does have a free VPN. I haven't, oh yeah, in the previous slide actually, I wanted to mention, so Proton VPN and Proton Mail, they're paid services, but they're extremely high quality. Proton VPN even has something called Secure Core. If you were really worried, you could send it through a server system that's almost like its own separate micro internet that's duly shielded from any internet service provider.
Proton does have a free email.
You can make a free email, but it's pretty limited how much you can use it. That's
Be aware of free. When you
right.
sign up for
It's
something
minimum.
that's free, yeah, you're giving them
But
something for that.
their mail is the only one I know that's truly end-to-end encrypted again. Now, if you're emailing someone who has a Gmail account, Gmail can read it because it's on their side that they read it. But if you were to email between two Proton Mail accounts, theoretically you're highly encrypted. Not that I don't know how worried you are about that, but I have heard some weird things where emails could get changed or go missing. So, it might be more important in the future than it is now. There's some things that are coming down the pipelines.
The other cool thing about Brave is you can earn cryptocurrency rewards just for using it.
Yep.
So you get paid for making it part of your daily routine, and so you'll get little tokens deposited into your wallet. So
That's true.
nobody else does that. for you.
So all of this is really great, but the problem is when we start getting into being more technically involved in these applications, is it gets harder and harder to use the application.
I agree.
There's a little bit more of a learning curve.
This is,
or
right.
a concerted process you have to put into making sure that your stuff is secure, because trust me, every time there's a software update, every time there's an
Yep.
application update, they are resetting all those settings if you have ability to do.
Well, these browsers should maintain your settings even with updates. I bring up Ecosia and Brave both have search engines that I like. They claim not to track you.
I think you can tell Brave to use whatever one you want. Mine is
Right,
to use-
but Brave actually has its own search engine
Right,
too.
I use DuckDuckGo through them, so that's.
So I used to like DuckDuckGo. It's one that you can use in Apple Safari. Supposedly doesn't track you either. However, they've been open that they manipulate results, which I think is. I also, though, when I look at Brave and Ecosia, I'm like, I think they're using Bing and Google. They call it indexing, so that they know how to find things on the internet. So unfortunately, and there, actually, now that I think about it, there was a search engine that's in beta that I heard about. Search engines might be something if you really want to get the unfiltered internet, you're going to have to pay for a search engine at this point, because all the free ones are going to tell you how to think, is basically how it goes. So anyway, so security. I've already mentioned some of this. Malware and spyware. The difference being spyware often deployed by governments. And so one of the funny things about this is the main security loophole is you. So most of these things can't end up on your phone unless you clicked a link. Now, there's some things where if they're really good, they can actually hide it in a website that they don't own, and that's hard to get around. Or some even, say, really sophisticated actors could actually hide it in a cell tower. And then if you just walk by the cell tower, you could get it. But that's pretty rare. And at that point, it's like, are you an enemy of the state? Because they're going to a big... I mean, they're not going to do that for the average person. You know what I'm saying? You're not that important to the government. But these are things that happen all the time. So, and again, the difference between malware and spyware is basically using your phone to do things you don't want it to do. Spyware is actually spying on what you're doing. Phishing is, I'm sure you've all gotten emails where they're telling you, oh, my favorite one that I get all the time now is, your McAfee antivirus just re-upped for the next year. It's going to be $473. Here's your receipt. Yeah. And that's a phishing email, because I don't have McAfee antivirus, and they're just trying to get me to call them and go, what's going on? And they want to go, oh, let me look up your account. Give me your personal details. That's what phishing means. Ransomware has gotten more and more popular. It's a great way for people to make money if they have no morals or scruples. They send, usually, again, comes in through an email and a link, and then someone in the company opens it, say, whether it's a hospital or a government organization or a nuclear power plant, then all of a sudden no one can access their computers. They just go to a blank screen, which is pay us this much Bitcoin, or you don't have access to your computers.
Can I just say one quick thing?
Yeah.
Years ago, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago now, 9, I was running McAfee, McAfee Total Protection, and the little pop-up said something like Adobe Acrobat needs to install an update, whatever, and so I clicked on it, and it encrypted all of the photographs on my computer. And I found out that it was malware, and that antivirus wouldn't stop it. One of the only things that could stop it was Malwarebytes. So I downloaded Malwarebytes, ran it, and it completely cleaned up the entire computer. And luckily I had everything saved on Carbonite, so I was able to get all my pictures back. But now I will forever run McAfee and Malwarebytes together, just because you you got malware and you got viruses, and the two are like this match made in heaven. So.
Well, virus is a more sort of general term for this kind of software. So why I bring up AI? Again, you're the weak link, but AI is getting very good at exploiting you. So these are a couple articles that point out, so the first one's from 2022, just to be clear, or actually it was written early 2023. But at that point, there's already off-the-shelf AI software where you can take about 30 seconds of someone talking, put it in, and now you can mimic their voice saying whatever you want it to say. So that means you get a phone call.
Yeah, go ahead. You're going to say what I was about to say.
You get a phone call from someone you know. And they're good at spoofing phone numbers too. Here's a great one. And I should have known better because there was an accent. They didn't use a voice. But I got a phone call from the Idaho Medical Board telling me that I was having my license suspended because I was under investigation. The guy had an Indian accent though. So I told him, I'm going to call the board back, even though it was the right phone number. So I called the board back. Lucky me, their phone system was down that day, so I just got voicemail. So I was a little bit freaked out. He said I was under investigation by the FBI. So I called the FBI, and you know what they told me? If you're under investigation, we're the ones who are going to let you know, not your medical board. He's like, you'll hear a knock on your door. So just so you know, if anyone tells you you're under investigation by the FBI and they're not the FBI, that's BS. Go ahead.
So a good way to avoid those scams is if someone says, like, hey, I'm from this place that you know, I'm from your bank, I'm from this, blah, blah, blah. We're having a problem with your account. You should hang up and call them back.
That's what I tried to do, and I just had the luck
Right,
that,
and if their
yeah.
phone system's down, but that way you know you're the one who's initiating those privacy
Exactly.
type conversations, so you have the confidence that you're getting to the place where it's supposed to be.
Right. Because even the phone number can be spoofed.
Well,
Okay.
so getting a weird phone call from a random number, right, and it's like you can almost hear them or you can't hear them or whatever, you shouldn't continually talk into the phone to try to get them to respond, because actually that's a big scam right now is you're continuing talking, which is verifying your voice, right, and it's giving them more data on your voice, kind of like the picture.
That's how
thing
this
where,
happens.
If you say, oh, well, that's my daughter in this picture, right, then it tells you more what your daughter looks like, and then they can find her in more pictures.
How they get your family members' voices is by calling them and then giving them dead air and letting them talk.
Exactly.
And recording it.
100%.
So,
That happened to me several times.
so don't talk to it. Or speak in a foreign accent. I love doing that. Just like answer in a voice you wouldn't normally use.
Let's hear your voice.
Hello, who is? So,
Let Sean answer your phone.
yeah. So the other thing is, how much of a thing, people worry about deep fakes. I hear about Taylor Swift and my eyes glaze over. I'm like, I could care less about pop stars. They're just, anyways. So what's actually going on is they're getting so good at deep fakes where it can be both video and audio mimicking a person. They got someone at a Hong Kong company to transfer $25 million into their accounts. How did they do that? They mimicked, I think it was 3 or 4 people, CFO, CEO. They got images, created lifelike images that moved and spoke in the voice of those people, and they put them in a Zoom meeting, and they told the guy who had access, probably some person in the financial area of the business, here, we want you to move the money to these accounts, blah, 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 convince them to do it. So it's getting pretty good. The thing is just be aware that you can't, if something's fishy, it doesn't, and look, it's not perfect. This guy probably should have been looking more closely at the images. It's not perfect. It doesn't look perfectly real. There's something called the uncanny valley, where things get closer and closer to looking real, but when they're not quite real, you pick up on it. You feel like something is off. This looks weird. Take that to heart. Your intuition is correct. It is weird. Don't accept it as real.
Difficult in a digitized environment.
Yes. Keep losing the.
Earlobes and jaw lines are how you pick up on deepfakes pretty quick because you can't change someone's facial structure. You can only change the details of their face.
Right. So when they talk, if the jaw's not moving enough, that's one of the keys. Exactly. So I thought you all should know about this. It's sort of outside of the scope of my talk. There was a talk, it was a year ago basically, March of 2023. The AI dilemma. If you ever heard of the movie The Social Dilemma, it's the same guys. They did a presentation. It's free on YouTube. That's a QR code if you want to look up the YouTube video. AI has come a lot further than you might think. It can do things like translate Wi-Fi signals into a three-dimensional rendering of the room and everyone who's in it.
Just saw that.
Yeah. It can do things like translate brain signals into images. So it's getting weird. It's worth knowing about.
You know, we have a local expert, Michael Ashley.
Yeah.
I've listened to him. I didn't even want to go. I was so tired. I went down and listened to him. 2 hours. He kept me intrigued
Yeah.
with what he was sharing and how the government's using it against us.
So actually, here's one of my favorite things, and you can't even make this up. Does everyone remember the Terminator series? What was the AI called in Terminator?
Skynet.
That's what China calls their AI that monitors everyone in China and possibly the entire internet. Yeah, I wonder. So they have millions of cameras in every city, looking in every direction, monitoring everyone in real time with facial recognition, and everything you do, down to your facial expression while you do it, changes your social credit score. And that's all determined by Skynet. Just like, where we're actually at right now is kind of weird. Oh, did I go? No, okay. So some security solutions. Start with privacy. That's going to save you a lot of headaches. Avoid any link of unknown origin. So anytime I get an email, and it sounds, this could be a reasonable, check what's the email address of the sender. If it's some throwaway email address, just basically either report it as phishing or spam to your email provider, and anyways.
Yeah, so, sorry, that's really important.
Yeah, report it.
Right there. Look at the return email, all right? If you got something from Amazon or Yahoo, it will say Amazon.com, not
Right.
.amazon or Amazon.
Or, yeah, it won't be an @Gmail or an @MSN because those are free and it won't have a bunch of weird letters and numbers in it, which is how you can identify these people aren't real. Also, I'm sorry, I know I'm getting tons of political emails that I didn't sign up for these days. I guess that's how it works. They can just not care if you signed up. Just tell them stop. Never click on a link unless you are for sure it's even if it's Amazon telling you you're getting a delivery, UPS, USPS, these can all be spoofed. Don't click on the link. I mean, unless you are very, very, very sure. But even then, maybe just go to the website. Don't click on the link. And always report phishing and block spam. So I know in Gmail there's a specific way you can actually report phishing specifically. It's different from spam because phishing means they're actually trying to get your details. Spam just means they're sending you stuff you don't want. This is a big one. Minimize your smart devices. Choose dumb. Your refrigerator doesn't need to be able to scan everything inside the refrigerator. And even I've had in the past smart thermostat. You don't need a smart thermostat. It's just going to be another thing connecting to Wi-Fi all the time. I know it sucks. There's conveniences there. You can access it from anywhere, but you don't need it. And the more devices you have, this is actually one big way your home network can be compromised. These things don't update their software, and they have tons of security problems, and people just hack right into them. I also think I've been thinking more about Wi-Fi extenders. I was using a Wi-Fi extender, and then I looked in. You can go to the IP address of the extender, and I noticed there was a lot of Chinese. And then I was like, maybe I'm not going to use this extender anymore. Chinese government puts backdoors into everything, including, for a while, Apple and Amazon servers that they quietly got rid of. Hopefully their current servers don't have backdoors, but we're talking physical backdoors, not just software backdoors. So that's always interesting.
You got Andrew over here updating his phone right now.
Good.
Literally updating his phone.
So here's where my actual passion lies. If you got through the security and the privacy, you're already a big step forward. But EMF radiation, it's, the cigarettes of our time Doctors recommend carry a smartphone and a smartwatch and maybe even put a smart device under your skin. Okay, well, there might be some problems. So again, you have too many antennas on. If you're the average person, you have at least 4 antennas on your phone, and it's less than an inch from your body. It's not a good combination. And I'll say what I mean by encoding. So there are certain frequencies that are inherently toxic, and there are certain frequencies that are actually good for you. In fact, there's a whole world of, they call it PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic fields, that they're using it for healing. Now, the problem is those are smooth sine waves, okay? When you encode a wave, you stop it and start it rapidly. So if that wave is resonating, say, with a piece of your genome or a part of your cell, and that's why it's enhancing the structure of that, if you all of a sudden stop it and start it incredibly fast at split seconds, now you're causing whatever is resonating with that wave to shake and often break apart. So this is why we see more reactive oxygen species, more genetic breakdown, and with increased exposure. Now, no one's going to be exposed to 0. We live in a modern world. It's just about lessening it. Bring it down a notch. I think in the early 2000s, they had already determined we're being exposed to 1,000 times more microwaves than people in the 1980s. So,
David, Einstein said, all matter is energy. Mm-hmm. We sometimes think of ourselves as a physical, and we are, but at a cellular level, it's all energy. So it all interlaces.
Well, I sometimes joke that the whole scientific endeavor called physics should probably be changed to energetics, because that's what it's really the study of. But yeah, so we'll talk about different frequency bands, but obviously being aware that, so like 4G, there was a lot of towers put up. They called it LTE because that meant long-term evolution, and they thought they had maxed out all the bands they could use for telecommunications. Then 5G came along. It's like, well, what's going on? 5G was, well, we're going to use super low frequency to give people in rural areas more ability to at least make a phone call. It's not good for data because low frequency, you can't encode very much into it. But I actually like that. I think that's a great idea because now if you're out in the woods, you can probably make a phone call. The problem is 5G also was super high frequency for high data throughput. Now that's only going to be in urban areas because you have to put a ton of antennas up, because the higher frequency, the shorter distance it goes. The energy dissipates faster. So low frequencies go further. So when people talk about 5G, the part that they're worried about is the high frequency stuff that's mostly in urban areas, and they have to put up a ton of antennas to make it work. So most places don't have true 5G, which is the high throughput stuff, but they decided to make it difficult to know that because your phone will say 5G even if you're just getting low frequency. And some buildings will have their own cells in them, but most of the main things are towers, and some of them are disguised as trees, but they're pretty obvious. Wi-Fi routers are the one you have the most control over. You can turn it off at night, you'll sleep better, I promise. Especially if you turn your phone on airplane mode, turn your Wi-Fi router off, your sleep will be better. Your body will thank you. You will rest more deeply.
The other thing you should do on your Wi-Fi router, Sean, you probably know this, is they come with default passwords. You need to
yes.
change default passwords
That's,
for your routers.
Thank you. I didn't think of that. And this is not comprehensive because this is just the things I thought of. But that's very true. Change your password on your Wi-Fi router. If it's still the default password, it's vulnerable. So this is just giving you a sense of like what are, so electromagnetic radiation, what does that mean? It means light, photons. They go from very low frequency, which is very, low frequency is long wavelength. So, there's extremely low frequency radio waves the wavelength can be as big as a building. So these are low energy and they dissipate slowly. So they can be sent long distances, but like AM radio, you notice how AM has a lot worse quality of sound than FM? That's because it's lower frequency. You can get it further out, but you're going to lose quality because it doesn't have enough waves to be encoded more heavily. So you go up AM to FM, and then microwave ovens, which I learned when I was actually in chemistry, 2.4 gigahertz. At the time, that was the same frequency as your Wi-Fi router, which is interesting. That means it.
Tell me to get rid of my microwave though, right?
Don't stand in front of your microwave while it's on. So here's the other thing, the beauty of antennas. The intensity of the field dissipates at the square of the distance. So it's actually quite, like standing just a few feet away from something is extremely different than holding it next to your head. The intensity is probably a couple hundred times less.
Okay, because when I'm popping popcorn, I'm standing in front of it and I'm watching.
Don't look into the microwave. Don't go like this into the microwave. That's a bad idea. If it's a regular oven, you can look. If it's a microwave, stand back. Look, and there is a screen inside the microwave that's trying to block a lot of the microwaves, but there's been enough studies that, like, again, the closer you get to it, the more intense that exposure is. You don't want the water molecules in your brain spinning. So interestingly, that's what microwaves do. They don't, normal heat, it does this to molecules, basically vibrates them. Microwave ovens spin water molecules, which is why they think it can cause issues inside the cells, because the water in your cells is in a coherent state so that information can be communicated more easily. Anyway, but this just gives you a sense. So the most extreme radiation is up here. They call it ionizing radiation, things like X-rays and gamma rays. Those are like cosmic or, imaging. Those are the most toxic. Luckily, that's not what your phone's putting out. Your phone's putting out non-ionizing. And so that's why the industry's been able to get away with calling it, generally considered safe, even though they didn't do the studies. Because the idea was, well, it's not ionizing, so we're good. So this just gives you a little bit of sense. I got this from Defender Shield's website. They're a company that makes high-quality phone cases. Mine is a safe sleeve. It's approximately the same idea. The reason it opens is this cover that goes over the screen is actually where the EMF protection is. So it's basically a Faraday cage, which means it has woven metals in it that absorb and reflect radio frequencies. And they're actually tested to make sure they can block all of the radio frequencies that the phone produces. So at least, I don't recommend putting your phone to your head, ever. Just don't do it. No reason to. You can have headphones or speakerphone. Use those. But even if I did, at least the case is blocking most of it.
But I have a feeling you're going to not recommend Bluetooth headphones. You're going to recommend wired headphones, right?
At least Bluetooth is better than putting your phone to your head. But yes, your ears have a canal into your brain. So it's actually the easiest way to get frequencies past your skull. And there are certain frequencies that resonate inside the skull, so that's even better. But yeah, no, there's a lot of tumors showing up right behind people's ears. That's like one of the main places we see brain tumors now, and it's because people are doing this. So they're showing with and without shielding, they're trying to sell their devices. But this is just giving you a sense of like what frequency ranges are coming off. The extremely low frequency, that's basically like the battery. There's not a lot of research on if that's really that much of a problem, although I will say like high tension power lines put off some of these and have been known to cause problems if they're really intense. And then you have the mid-range and the high frequency. And anyways, they're just talking about what the frequencies actually are. And so this is another way of looking at the spectrum of these frequencies. Some people have different ways of looking at it. So again, the non-ionizing is where we're at. Basically the microwave. They often call them radio frequency, but really it's the microwave. It's a little more high frequency than radio waves. So it has more data capacity. But it's below visible light. So I like to bring this up. So I know I don't love the WHO, but they have some research groups that are supposed to put out information for our benefit.
They were great for COVID.
Yeah, I'll.
Well, look, who put out some really good music?
Can we just say that radio frequencies are bad for us? But we need them.
Right. So, but this is, anyway, they put together a group that studies cancer, and as far as May 2011, they had already put out a paper basically saying, we know that basically this is a possible carcinogen, especially glioma, which is the one you get in the brain. So, infertility is a big issue these days. Not that this is the only thing affecting it, but these are some studies that have shown, basically sperm not functioning well, DNA damage, and of course we all keep our phone in our pockets, right? Perfect. So, yeah, motility, decline, everything. I actually helped a couple with fertility, and one of the main things I said was get yourself some EMF protective underwear. Yes, that's a thing.
Just get some lead shorts.
So I'm actually wearing, they're silver lined. They do make them with copper lining too, but
Keep the werewolves
anyways.
out too.
So this is a good one too. So exposure on unborn fetuses causing abnormalities, including DNA damage, developmental disorder, and childhood cancers. So the data's in.
So you can actually get blankets and like belly bands
Mhm.
for pregnant women that are lined with silver or have like
Exactly.
their EMF shielding. So a lot of women don't think about like you're sitting with your
Mhm.
laptop on your lap or your phone.
Agreed. And
on my body.
a company that I like is Lambs. Their website is getlambs.com.
Okay.
They make good products. They're not cheap. In fact, when I first started buying from them, they were less than half of what they cost now. So I don't know of any other company that's producing a lot of these products, though, so they kind of can charge whatever they want, unfortunately. So here's just some symptoms of EMF exposure. Oh, and I should mention, a lot of people come to this after they realize they have a smart meter attached to their house, which is listening to, sending data to your power company about how much power you're using, but it's also sending massive waves throughout your whole house. And anyways, it has a very strong signal too because it's sending it all the way back to the power company. So if that's
They made that not optional now, right? Like you can't
right, so if that's next to your bed, what you should do, you can go on Amazon, you can buy Faraday cloth, they call it. It's a silver woven cloth, and it's literally designed by the military. And you can put that anywhere. So you can put it up on a wall, you can put it over a window. So if you do have like a smart meter right next to your bed, and you're like, this is my bedroom, I'm not just gonna live in some other part of the house, you can block that out.
But you mean on the outside wall to your bed?
Whatever works, I mean, you can put on the inside or the outside. What?
Right over the power line.
Yeah. But I like to point out, like, what are the symptoms? These are basically all the most common things that I see in my office, right? Like nervous system and endocrine dysregulation. Oh, that means your hormones and, you're like always wired but tired. Maybe you're exposed to your antennas too much. Headaches and nerve pain, digestive disturbances, insomnia, fatigue, heart arrhythmia, ringing in the ears, depression, anxiety.
Now you tell me.
Forgetfulness, difficulty concentrating, low fertility, infertility, skin rashes, idiopathic joint pain or skin pain or muscle pain, vertigo and nausea, reduced immunity or autoimmunity. Now, this is not the sole cause of all these things, definitely not. But say you have a few heavy metals in your system, which we all do, that's going to amplify it. And this is just one that you have control over limiting your exposure. Again, no one's going to zero, not anymore, not with Starlink and all that, but you can definitely bring the level down. So, some solutions.
That's not on there.
What's that?
I don't know that your bones become, I don't know, they're very technology.
Bones are affected?
Yeah.
I'm not aware of how bones are affected, but it wouldn't surprise me because, your bones are constantly being reshaped. There's osteoclasts and osteoblasts. One breaks them down and one builds them up. And they're always changing shape just slightly depending on what you're doing. This is why if you do heavy lifting, your bones become more dense. Or, especially if you do martial arts or something, your bones will respond. So I'm sure there's probably a response to EMFs. I'm unfamiliar, but it doesn't surprise me. So like I said, start with your privacy and security. That's going to save you a lot of headache to begin with. Use airplane mode when you can. Like when I silence my phone during a presentation, I turn on airplane mode. That way I know nothing's going to come through. It's not even going to vibrate. because why should I have all those notifications coming through when I'm not going to be looking at them? I want to pay attention to the presentation. It's only, 30 minutes an hour, so who cares? You can also just turn on single antennas. So like if I'm like, well, I really want to get, if I get a call, I want to get it, well, I can just turn on the Wi-Fi and access calling and texting through Wi-Fi. EMF protective cases, I'm a big fan. Your phone is probably closer to you than it should be. If you read the fine print on the phone company that made your phone, they tell you not to keep it within 8 inches of your body. You're probably keeping it closer than 8 inches. So just having, and these phone cases are a little more expensive. They're like $60 to $70. It's not going to be a $20 case, but that's because there's a lot of technology that goes into making them actually work. It's also doubles as a wallet. It's not the only kind of wallet case, but I like that.
Can you point out the website behind you there?
So this is Defender Shield. That's where I just wanted to say I've gotten, Defender Shield is, so I like I said, Safe Sleeve. It's a similar product. This is just showing what's inside this thing that blocks. They call theirs Ultra Armor, and they've tested it against all the different frequencies, including even the low frequency battery emissions. Again, EMF protective clothing, getlambs.com has some. There's other products on Amazon and stuff if you're looking for something a little less expensive. I love power strips. So I have a smart TV, and it's connected to a power strip. So when I'm not watching TV, that thing's powered down. It's not just turned off with the little red light that tells you I'm actually still on your Wi-Fi. No, I power it down, and I'm very specific about that one. So Edward Snowden, when he was relevant, mentioned that the CIA had created a project called Weeping Angel to hack Samsung smart TVs. Samsung. I had an Airbnb guest at one point that was from Saudi Arabia, and he plugged his computer into my television to use it as a monitor. And then my TV wouldn't work very well anymore. And it lasted like that for months and months until Samsung finally put out a software update and it started working again. And I'm pretty sure the CIA hacked my television. So just, And by the way, all those tools that the NSA and CIA created to hack into everyone's stuff, they all got leaked on the dark web. So everyone has access to them, just so you know. That's why ransomware exists. It's actually because our tax dollars funded the creation of it. Yeah, I love power strips, and you can even get timers, so you don't even have to go press a button. The timer can turn it off for you if you want. And reminder, speakerphone and headphones are much better than holding your phone to your head. So that's it. I have a blog article on this topic as well if you're interested. And that QR code will take you to my blog if you want. But any questions?
So let's talk frequencies.
Yeah.
Does everybody remember that, COVID started? Remember that commercial that our federal government was running and it had that dome and the tones, and it didn't say a lot, and it just a line would come across the screen, and there was an undertone of a high frequency tone or a low frequency tone.
I'm not familiar.
And my wife, every time she heard that commercial come on, it made her anxious. All right, so trust me, our PsyOps department inside the U.S. government, when they create these ads, create them in specific ways. So that piece there, I wanted to share that with everybody is it does happen. Tones have an effect on how we react. So just, and when you hear it over and over and over again, immediately she would go anxious. As soon as she heard that, she would go into anxiety. So
I was in a meeting last month, and I called Crystal after the meeting, and I said, the problem is the more time I spend around certain people, you have to be careful that I'm going to somehow one day go, oh, I want to follow this group, and now you're not going to want to be married to me anymore. But apparently the guy came in special, and he could only be in the building for a certain amount of time because there's a 5G tower on top of that building, and it makes him sick.
Yep.
And so he came in to give a presentation, and it was all about even the wiring in the buildings, and the lights that go side to side, and just all the stuff. But he was like, do this when you go to bed at night. Go to your circuit breaker and turn off all the circuits and see how you sleep.
That's true.
the electromagnetic field, yeah.
That's a little further than I'm willing to go, but
Are there any devices that you
buy that can measure EMF wave?
There are, for about, I think somewhere around $150, you can get an RF meter, is usually what they're called. Yeah, so you can go around your house and check where there is strong emissions and then try to mitigate them. Like I said, you can get this fabric. It's not super expensive. I mean, for like $40, you can get a ream of it, basically, in silver fabric that will block EMFs. So if you found a really bad hotspot, you could deploy some of that. People might think...
apps for your phone that you can get that will detect.
Oh, really? So maybe there are even
Your
apps.
phone is a receiver.
Yeah, I mean, your phone is a receiver. It should, yeah, it should be able to detect it.
Help you detect hotspots, so.
Well, that's cool.
Can you put that in front of your microwave? My microwave is right above my stove where I'm cooking.
Well, so your microwave's only emitting microwaves when it's on,
Yeah.
when you're actually cooking.
And I am maybe also using the microwave.
Yeah, if you're doing both,
So-
then I would just say ideally stand back. So the area that's going to emit the most microwaves is that glass part on the door. The rest of it is reinforced, so it shouldn't be emitting much, or at least a lot less. That window is where most of it's going to come out. So if you're right in front of the window, you're getting a pretty good dose.
I've seen studies that older microwaves, the seal on the
Yeah.
door goes bad after a while, so if you have an older microwave, it's going to emit more.
Yeah,
But
that
if you
makes
have a new
sense.
microwave, it's going to emit a lot less.
I just took the microwave apart because I'm one of these guys that there's a lot of components parts in there. So I just, I had one that went sideways on me, so I took it apart. Well, as I was taking it apart, I'm like, there's an open gap air vent, and all it does is go right down to those
Yeah.
open gap air vents to underneath the microwave. From the inside of the microwave, there's no shield or anything.
Yeah.
in there.
So, Mike, but you're probably not directly above or
No.
below it.
Right,
But yeah,
but still,
yeah.
yeah, as far as shielding goes,
I mean, again, so it's non-ionizing radiation. Most of the time people talk about radiation, they're talking about like nuclear radiation. That's a lot more dangerous. You need a lot lower dose to do a lot of damage with that stuff. Luckily, our Earth has a magnetic field which shields us from 99% of it, because all these cosmic rays are gamma and X-ray. But yeah, so that stuff is definitely way more dangerous, but that doesn't make non-ionizing radiation safe. You know what I mean? It's safer. I would rather be next to a cell phone that's on than a bar of plutonium.
I got a question for you. Have you gone down the rabbit hole enough to know for the high voltage power line? So I guess I'll comment first. The
Yeah.
craziest thing I've ever, because I never believed any of this stuff as far as like, but then when I worked at the sheriff's office out here, we had a place out in Harrison where this guy would go and stick metal rods underneath high voltage lines and steal power for his whole house. Just through the air. And I'm like, dude,
There was
you can steal power, right? So what's it doing to your body? And I talked to my buddy who's an electrical engineer. He's like, yeah, that's essentially a transformer or transducer or whatever. But then when I look it up, because that's where I come in, all these houses that have the high voltage lines as an easement across their house, and it's a few hundred yards away or whatever. But I've seen 100 feet, I've seen 300 feet, I've seen 700 feet online, and so everyone has their own
Well-
and I just divert to the client. But have you went down the rabbit hole to know?
I mean, it would depend how much power is going through the lines. So usually when you, like in a rural area, those lines are used by far fewer homes than in an urban area, right? So like when you see the really big lines over a freeway or something, those are carrying a lot of power, and their field is equally larger. In fact, I've seen an art project, and I think the guy had to get a bunch of permits to do this. He put in a bunch of fluorescent tubes just on their end, stuck in the ground underneath power lines, and you could see they were really bright under the power lines, and as they got further and further away from the power lines, they got dimmer and dimmer. So you could see the field as the light in the tubes. And Tesla developed that technology, and he wanted to send all power wirelessly. I mean, he even did that for a while from his laboratory. But yeah, he actually invented most of the technology that goes into a smartphone, and he predicted their existence. He literally said, you will have a device in your pocket that you can talk to other people and see them. He predicted that over 100 years ago, so kind of weird.
Really impressive